transition phase. It's more of like, we're in-house meetings. So we held one in Largo at first, then St. Pete, we just had one in Clearwater, which was an amazing turnout, because we had that first United Methodist, first United Methodist. And they helped us bring a ton of people in from our meetings. So we have a lot of people showing up, a lot of people really eager to become COC members. It's just difficult, right? Because a lot of these people have been failed over and over and over again. So when you walk in there and you tell them that you're gonna let them have a voice and things are gonna change, right, they don't really believe it yet. And so we're still just trying to get people engaged. And I think people are really, really interested and they wanna be there and they wanna have their voice heard. It's just gonna take a lot to get people to start really believing that they can make a difference. So we're gonna start our first kind of real meeting next month. And we're gonna kind of keep them in Largo at this point, so they're at the same spot. And we're gonna go off to people who joined as COC members, and we're helping them fill out applications and meeting them and doing those types of things. And then by November, you guys should have a charter, so that way you can formally accept them as a committee. And so we're really excited about that. They have such good ideas, and like, these people are so passionate. I've never met more people that care more. And a lot of these people we're talking about actually have lived experience and are currently living with lived experience. But we are still looking for different populations, people who are experiencing or have experienced domestic violence, people with living with disabilities, people part of the LGBTQ population. We really need that diversity. So we need veterans. So, you know, if you have any suggestions or people that were in your programs that you want to maybe have us engage with, we would just love for you to reach out and let us know. But it's coming together really well. I'm just really proud of those people because they're really vulnerable and they're putting themselves in really uncomfortable positions. And so we're doing our best to make it a safe space for them.
Carly, I love that update. And, you know, I just want to continue to say that as that process evolves, that one of the things that I have found over the years is having separate committees doesn't always do what we want it to do. And so including individuals with lived experience on our current committees often gives more voice, so that these individuals would be a part of every single discussion as opposed to a separate discussion that somehow we're now trying to fold into some other thing, right? So I understand I've brought this up many times, right? And we continue to go down this path, which, you know, is fine. I just want to continue to say though, that as it evolves and they get their sea legs underneath them, is that we are inviting them to be a part of all the other standing committees that we have, because that's where we need them, right? It's not in some separate committee that is somehow separate from all of us, because I'm sitting here thinking, well, I would love to be at that meeting.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can be at one more meeting, like I can fly. So, right, it's like, I can't, my heart says I want to be at that meeting, and then my head says, April, are you crazy? You can't be everywhere. So again, just remember that as we evolve, that it would be really good to sunset that separate committee, because they're now a part of every other committee. I mean, there may be some reason that they need a separate committee for a separate topic.
Their own things, yeah,
But-
to advocate or
But
something.
they
That is the
really
intention.
are Part of
Yeah.
us.
And we've had Jennifer here at a couple of meetings. Jennifer CoC is part of that core group that's been showing up. She's the one who puts out flyers throughout Clearwater. I don't know how far down she goes, but of show up, I need you here at this meeting. She speaks at our council meetings. She's living in her car. And then we have Matt, who's a vet, but he's a young man. So I think, you know, an older vet is important as well.
Much diversity possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, as much diversity.
Yeah.
And one of the, you know, April, to your point, is that's the conversation that I had with one of the individuals who came to the meeting is, what happens? I said, what do you think is, you know, it's one of the questions I asked, where have we gone wrong, is, you know, and what can we do better? And that's where this conversation always goes, is, you know, when we're looking at review and rank even, or any conversation, is when we were speaking about the NOFO, for instance, with Eric, he's a gentleman that was at the meeting, I was explaining the process to him, and he goes, can I sit on this? I said, yes, please. I said, we need you on this, because you're gonna bring a perspective that I don't have.
We have at least at least 4, I think, that are really,
Oh, I
have
think
been
there's
at all the meetings.
Yeah.
pretty
And
much.
to take one point,
Yeah.
when we're doing the NOFO this year, HUD talks a lot about a lived experience advisory group. So part of it is gonna be a requirement that maybe they don't have to meet monthly though, which I totally get.
Mhm.
And they've talked about going to DSP meetings, DEI meetings, and working in those different facets. And then having a meeting with providers council, and then having a meeting with funders. I just think it's gonna take them a while to get full. And to get them even to come together is hard, and they feel very stressed. People leave early, they get uncomfortable, so I think that you're definitely right. I think it's just gonna take time to encourage them not to feel like intimidated or something.
Guys, as a coalition, if we're doing it right, you have people like me 20 years later sitting here at your table. If we're really doing it right, we're not going out and, oh, you have lived experience, you have lived experience. They're just people in the community making a difference. Like I kind of take exception a little bit to it, to be frank.
Well,
I mean,
I'm sorry that you do. I don't think.
I just mean in terms of, I don't know, it's when you are directing an entire continuum of care, and the best you can do is have a committee of lived experience. I mean, I think it's sad. Because really, if we're doing our job, then the people that have experienced homelessness are not homeless anymore. They are productive, contributing members of our community giving back. And I think if we, you know, the fact that I'm sitting here in a lived experience thing, but because it's 20 years, like that's not considered as valid anymore either. So like, at what point, like, can it just be people in the community who maybe experienced homelessness? Why does it have to be, you know? all
But I
that?
think we need to be intentional to reach out, because it's hard. I think they might not realize we exist, or we're here to do this work. I think we need to be intentional to
Yeah,
invite.
I get that, I
You
get
know.
that. I get
Yeah,
that.
and motivational interviewing, I mean, Kevin can speak to it better than I can, but, the whole concept of nothing about you without you,
Exactly.
right? Like that, making decisions on behalf of people, right, that aren't at the table feels wrong. And so I'm operating from the perspective of exactly what I just said, which is nothing about you without you. And, so people with 20 years and people who are recently or people who, haven't moved along a continuum that you were able to move along. It's like learning and figuring out, like, sometimes I think, people are making decisions without really having a clear understanding of
the
what,
nuance. Yeah.
of the nuance, right?
I can kind of relate to what you said, because when I think about some of the most effective, like, peers or lived experience people that have gotten involved in boards, they're ones that like kind of naturally drew to that point. They were seeking out ways to give back, and then they became part of a couple of my boards or whatever. But the times where I've gone and like intentionally seek people out, or maybe that's not where they were at that point. Those were the ones that really weren't as successful, and you couldn't really retain them. It's like, but to your point, there still does need to be a platform that we don't want to exclude perspectives that people in this room don't understand, because we're making big decisions on our system. And sometimes we might be doing that without an understanding of what the true real need is. And so it is a delicate balance between, not, minimalizing it, but hurting them into this like group to check off a box.
No.
We don't want to be in
No,
that position.
and Jennifer's been here. Have you been here with Jennifer's here? And, we're all the same here at the table. Nobody has an indicator of who you are, what.
I do, I'm the lived
voice.
experience
Yeah.
board member.
Okay.
Not that I care, I mean, I really don't care, but I'm saying somebody else actually might.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, it's the
They
long
might
ago
not
now,
want
but
that part.
yeah. Proud to be sitting at the table, but in order to be inclusive, and I think you see this with your DEI initiatives and all the other things, like, everybody kind of has to be involved from the start. This is going backwards, in my opinion. If we really wanted to know what coordinated entry was like for a consumer, all we have to do is sit in a homeless shelter's lobby
Mhm.
and see how we re-traumatize people. Because there's not a bed here, but, oh, hold on, we can get you a bed in South St. Pete tomorrow,
Mhm.
but I'm from North County.
You know, I do get what you're saying, Tony. I spoke at this supportive housing conference. I think some of us went to, this week, or no one I see in the room, but anyway, and one of the things that struck me about it is how similar, and this was intentional, because remember, we didn't have coordinated entry and we had to intentionally do certain things via HUD guidelines, but I was working with Chris Kogel, Dr. Kogel, who some of you might know, statewide, and you know, and we all sort of now do operate the same, that there are systems. Yes, we lose something for sure, and we re-traumatize, and those who know me and have been around this forever, it's startling to me that we still have similar discussions. When I first met April was probably, I'm gonna guess 20 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, when we were at a meeting and Tim Burns was talking about, and we were all talking about how we gotta come up with a common assessment so we don't constantly re-traumatize people. And I think that it becomes a mixed bag because we want to have more lived experience at the table. But man, if I had the lived experience, you're a unicorn in a sense that you're willing to say, hey, you know what? Because I've read a good part of your book now. Thank you. And I've read your experience, right? You're the unicorn in the sense of saying, hey, you know what? I've fought through this and here's where I come through. You know, it's finding the people, because we have approached some of the successful residents and they're like, I just don't want to be part of that system. I'm appreciative, but man, it's such and in finding the people to do that is, I mean, we have to be realistic about it. Cause you know, Zach and I've talked about this with certain people. He's like, well, there's this one guy who's willing to, like, with all the people who come through HEP, there's this one guy who's willing to, right? And I get it. I really do. But, you know, I mean, you know, you have to kind of go through and say, who has a lived experience, who wants to now come back and, you know, and might have been somewhat pretty well traumatized, because I think your point is an excellent one, is how the system works, and the systems work similarly. That's what struck me when I was at this meeting is, you know, everyone has the sort of same way they're doing coordinated entry and have the same issues with the VI, that whatever. I don't know that there's a solution to how do we create more of a population. We just are gonna have to continue to do the best we can with it. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, or I did.
I just think it's interesting, right, that this started as a success story, and then, and this is where we end up, right? Which I think is almost the opposite of a success story, nonetheless, and maybe we don't have the time on this agenda, but I'm very interested in this idea that that from Tawny's perspective, we are almost taking a step backwards. That is a direct quote, right? That just literally came out of her mouth. If that is the case, right, then there's something that needs to be discussed further. And so maybe it's a subcommittee, maybe it's an agenda item. I don't know what it is or where that is, if it starts at providers council or if it's, I don't know what, but the quote that we are taking a step backwards means something. It should mean something, and
Well,
I don't, yeah.
maybe we can reach out to, some of our most interested people that have shown up at a number of the 3 meetings that I've been at. And, you know, the 3 meetings, there are some consistent, Eric, Jennifer, Matt, and you said a couple more, to meet with Tawny. We could all meet together and just have a discussion about the concerns and what they see that group being and how that group can be part of the COC and help us. And, you know, just kind of get those things on the table early on, because we're still real early on. They don't even have a charter. We don't have a charter.
Why not invite them here as an agenda item to get the perspective on how their perspective can be a part of our system?
I'd really like to know, we don't have time for today, I understand, but I really would like to understand what Tawny means when she says it,
Mhm.
right? And give,
And have all of us
Fine.
understand, yeah.
before we're inviting people
Yeah.
who are already nervous, I just wanna first understand from our current board members' perspective, what that means, and to see if we can't, learn something from that, and then invite other people to have that discussion.
Do you want us to put it on the next agenda, our next meeting agenda for a more robust discussion?
I won't be able to attend the next meeting, we have a all day network.
Okay.
But maybe Monica could meet with Tawny.
Yeah,
And then Monica could bring that
and we
information.
can, I can bring it back. And then that is actually potentially the meeting that we are also bringing the charter, so it's a very natural
Mhm.
progression and will allow for additional time for it. on
Yeah, or
agenda
the
as well.
meeting with Tawny could inform the
The-
discussion with
right,
the charter.
exactly.
Developing the charter.
Exactly.
Okay.
Success,
Sorry.
success story.
Sorry,
Yeah.
thank you for speaking up.
Thanks, fine.
Yes, very much. Who wants to talk about the success story? This, do we want to add this one, Ted's success?
That was from last time.
We talked about Ted.
We
Okay,
talked about.
all right, okay.
I just wanted you guys to see what kind of things we could do with the success stories, and, you know, I can take this kind of stuff, share it with everybody, put it online, that kind of stuff. I just wanted you guys to see, and then remind you that there's a little link where you can share success stories outside of these meetings too.
Cool.
Very good. All right, well, thank you. All right, well, let's take a look. So we're on track here. We'll look at our consent agenda. Anyone have comments?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Motion in a second. Any comments, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda passes. Thank you. And with quorum. Very good. All right, committee updates and recruitment. Monica?
Yes, hi, so a couple of things on this, we would like to ask our community chairs, I know that we've been doing some really great work with providers and funders, so if April and Megan could give an update on that. DSP is continuing to meet, we will be having our next meeting, I believe it is next Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, to hopefully fine tune some benchmarks, and then they will be sent out to providers, April, to give a final review for input in advance of it getting voted on. So once there was some tweaking on a couple of them, so I was speaking with Sam, he was like, why don't you send them once so hence the delay, but once they look at them, they'll be sent out to all providers, funders to look at, to see if there's any feedback, to see if there's any questions. And so moving forward there, DEI.
Our meeting's next Tuesday, and we are actually pulling together as a group, and we're going to make it more of a finite focus as to a specific population and what we're gonna focus on the next year as it includes diversity. And we're gonna look at the population of the minor children in the families and how diversity, equity, and inclusion are impacting them in our culture. We are also planning to have the ACLU we're gonna try to get them scheduled for the next board meeting.
Doug and April, would you like to give an update on the providers, funders joint meeting?
But we had, how long ago was it now?
Couple weeks.
We had a joint meeting of funders and providers to continue working through some of the same needs that we have surfaced before. There's a jurisdictions meeting coming up, and I think that might get delayed to work on looking at the usage of funding and update the ongoing funding chart that we have. And also at that meeting, it was discussed there was some good discussion about the need for advocacy, and especially around the updates to our regular plans that communities have to address housing and other needs. And the need to make sure that the voice of the CoC is in that room, especially not just in informing the folks that are usually around our table from local government, but then also making sure that the CoC has a voice at those public meetings that take place, where decisions are made about how to use funding, how to allocate that, and how that gets worked in plans for communities. That was a significant part of the discussion of that group as well. Did I miss anything, April?
No, it really was a very good discussion in my opinion around, what Duggan is referring to is that, every community has their own kind of opportunity for community members to weigh in on the priorities, and that we often have disconnect between the communities. So what Largo is focused on is different than what Clearwater is focused on, which is different than what St. Pete is focused on, kind of thing. And the recommendation around, right, that originally we kind of talked about that we would show up and do some advocacy there. And then ultimately he came down to, we will issue a white paper, so to speak, or a statement that then could be shared with and or read or become a part of the packet for every single council meeting, board meeting, all of the, right, so that everybody is getting basically the same language as opposed to different. I thought it was a very good meeting. We celebrated some successes. I just want to say that at this table is that we are seeing incremental changes with some of our funding partners, some of our jurisdictional kind of county, city government type partners. And we spoke about some of those successes, some language and process changes that are happening, for example, with the city of Clearwater and with Pinellas County and some others who are kind of incorporating some of this feedback into when they have an opportunity to make changes to, in fact, make changes that will make it easier for providers to deliver the services, to be funded partners and those kinds of things. So I really do think that it is these two meetings a year are making a difference.
So can
And
I
we've
ask,
upped them to 4 too.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we've upped
Okay.
to 4 joint meetings and 2 individual meetings.
I have to, if I can echo that sentiment, correct me if anyone thinks I'm wrong, but I think that they're having significant impact when you really look at how quickly even the jurisdictions are reacting. I mean, that, I always wonder with some of these meetings that we've been doing, because I feel like we've been doing this a long time, or I have, that where are we truly making impact? I think those might be of the most impactful meetings that we've really coordinated. And the reason to up it to 4 is because kind of that aha moment. I was going to use a different term that had a curse word in it, but it's that aha moment of, God, that we finally found a secret formula on where we're going to make some impact. And I think that can't be understated.
do you mean the aha moment, the most impactful meetings are the jurisdiction meetings or the joint
No.
funder
The joint
providers?
funder provider.
Joint funder providers. I think so too. I mean, and anyone is invited to attend to listen. Is that
Sure.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And what are can you share just a couple of when they've had the opportunity to make changes, they are making them both Pinellas and Clearwater? Do you have 1 or 2 specifics? that you
Sure.
could
So with Clearwater specifically, one of the challenges for providers that has been talked about, and that was certainly talked about in the initial joint meeting, was around things like all of these funding sources are reimbursed, right? And so providers are asked to spend rather significant money in advance, right? And then you get reimbursed. So one of the challenges has been the reimbursement
Timely
schedule,
reimbursement,
timely
yeah.
reimbursement. And so one of the suggestions that came out of that first meeting, and I can't remember who brought the suggestion, it may have been Amy Foster, but that you can negotiate to see if you can't submit reimbursements twice a month. I will say the Juvenile Welfare Board, honestly, everywhere I go, I want to tell everybody how amazing the Juvenile Welfare Board is as a funded partner. That has not always been the case, I'm just gonna say. They have taken great strides to be very provider friendly and So using some of what the Juvenile Welfare Board has been able to do. So with the Juvenile Welfare Board, for example, you submit for reimbursement, you can do it twice a month. You submit it on Tuesday, you're paid on Friday. Period, the end,
Good.
right? And so, anyway, we brought some of that back
Mhm.
and the city of Clearwater agreed.
Good.
Chuck was at the meeting that time,
Mhm.
and so city of Clearwater agreed, and so we were able to
Just
submit twice a month.
Okay.
We're paid within 2 weeks, so it's not quite as fast as the Juvenile Welfare Board, but it's within 2 weeks.
Good.
So that's just one example. There's a handful of examples where some of the discussion, right, is driving process
Good,
change.
good.
That is allowing providers and funders,
Mhm.
which are just opposite sides of the same
Yeah,
coin,
Yeah,
right? It's
Right.
not us
Well,
against them.
and we had that in this room a
Yes.
year ago, where it
Yes.
was a light bulb moment, where we put the paper on the wall, like we all, so that's good,
Need
okay.
each other.
And one more little thing, and then Kevin, but, you mentioned, about the white paper that I think that's phenomenal. The thing that I would caution is, well, not caution, but I'm finding my reality is, I've gathered those stats and I've got comparators between what Clearwater spends for, social services and what St. Pete does, because that's a good comparator for us. And so you have the stats from Pitt and all that stuff, and spending and municipalities and the cost and average pay and turnover rate and all those things you think would really make an impact and move the needle. And in my experience, it's just, and it goes. And so we'll have it, and that's great, but it takes, and this is where I have hope for people, us or others with lived experience or people in our community that we're working with will show up and put a face on it as well. And so I appreciate the white paper. I'm looking forward to the white paper, but the white paper isn't the golden ticket for huge change.
Yeah,
In my experience.
I don't think it was a one or the other that was really discussed. I think it was a layered, more of a layered,
Absolutely.
more of
Swiss
a
cheese
layered
over-
approach. But the idea around when these groups are creating their plans
Their budgets,
and
yeah.
and not just their budgets, but what is the plan called?
The consolidated.
The consolidated plan,
plans,
when
yeah.
they're creating, right, because if it doesn't make its way into the consolidated plan, then in the practice of it, right, they can't just modify it, right? The plan is being submitted months or a year in advance.
Yeah.
So then when it comes time to spend the money, if it's not in the consolidated plan, you can't, you see what I'm saying?
Right,
It's
yep,
that,
yep.
it's those kinds of
Okay.
things that we're trying to back up and get
And
ahead
that's
of.
good.
It was Commissioner Peters who suggested we create some kind of consistent letter to send to the communities. And I think we identified, like, the people who are crafting those plans are in the room with us. But sometimes the information doesn't necessarily make it to the plan, and there is a public input portion to that,
Yes.
and we're not in that room.
Okay, got
And
it.
so it's necessary to at least send we can't be in all rooms, but
Mm-hmm.
at least send a consistent document
Attached.
to all communities
Yep.
about their
Consolidated plans.
consolidated plans. And, the focus that we have on homeless and what our priorities are.
Yeah, because it has to be in the consolidated plan in order to ultimately put money to it.
Mhm. Yeah. Kevin or somebody over there, was somebody speaking?
Oh, I was just a comment. It was just a really reinforcing comment that we need each other.
Yeah, we
Providers
do.
and funders, funders need providers for their expertise and service to our clients and community, and providers need, the support and trust of funders to carry it out.
I've had only good feelings about that group when they get together.
It's great to have the conversation.
Yeah, I think it's, the most valuable. Great, very good. Okay. Any other committee updates?
Yes, so Point in Time Committee, we are actively recruiting for members to be part of Point in Time Committee. We are actively planning on writing a campaign event, but it's only we're 5 months away now. So please reach out to Shannon or Victoria or myself if you would like, or if anybody would like to be on that. Wait.
I will do a little plug for that as well. The Point in Time Planning Committee, they meet monthly, but there are subcommittees that need a lot of help. And the subcommittees are where the survey gets crafted. So I did take all of the suggestions that this group had for the survey and I shared them with the chair, with Shannon, and they're sharing them with the subcommittee chair. But if you want to be a part of crafting that survey, join the survey development subcommittee for PIT. If you want to be part of helping determine where volunteers get deployed to ensure that the county is covered, please join the PIT deployment subcommittee. If you want to be part of training, there's a subcommittee for that. There's a subcommittee for planning the youth event. There is a first responder subcommittee for the first time this year. We have a marketing subcommittee for the second time this year. There's a lot of ways to get involved. There are a lot of opportunities for organizations and individuals to get involved and to have an impact, have a say in something that has a huge impact in our community, brings in a lot of money to our community, and really drives community engagement, media attention, all that. So please, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but Shannon's really the person and her email's up on the screen there.
I think we need to back here. I'm just a visitor. Can I?
Absolutely.
They're not in public centers. I'm just glad that we're back involved and we're members again. I'm part of the PIT committee and the PIT subcommittee on development of the PIT survey, and we have a meeting this Friday on Zoom. So anyone could, if they're interested, it's gonna be this Friday. So
Next Friday coming up, a week from today?
I believe it's a week from today.
Yeah.
Yes, 'cause today is Friday.
Yeah.
It has to be early.
Yeah.
You know, I would think our lived experience, well, you know, I'm sensitive, like, am I okay using that term for a while?
Yes,
we
please
don't-
continue to
Yeah.
use your term.
Okay.
As you want to.
Yeah,
I
but
was
I-
just expressing.
Yeah, but I think, they should be involved in the language on the
Yes,
survey,
I
for sure. And I wonder, I don't know how much flexibility we have, doesn't HUD have some required?
Well, there is
questions or
some,
wording?
well, there's the data component that HUD requires
Mhm.
is entered into the system. Yes, there are required questions. However, we have the flexibility of adding additional questions.
Okay.
We also have the flexibility, and something I have spoken about before that Carly and I saw in Seattle was, you know, the data is great, the data is beautiful, but an important part of what we're missing with our point in time is the qualitative, the stories, that how did you end up where you are to really enrich the report.
Mhm.
So one of the things we've spoken about for this upcoming year and is doing a small area and, you know, very targeted area where we could do a peer interview. So we could teach, you know, motivational interviewing to those who would be interested, to really find out and get more stories, to get more in-depth interviewing, to get more in-depth data to add to the numerical quantitative components.
Adding the human touch back into it.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Yes.
And you know, there are those apps, I have like an Otter app that'll record
Mhm.
audio to text, as you just sit there and listen.
Yeah.
So it, you know.
Makes it easier.
Makes sense.
I cannot join another committee or
That's fair.
subcommittee. But I do just want to say to whoever is potentially going to for the deployment subcommittee, if, because we do have Treasure Island here, right? Treasure Island and Gulfport, St. Pete Beach is elevating a significant issue around people sleeping on beaches. There are communities that I think historically have not been included perhaps. I don't know that for sure in the deployment of a PIT in terms of who is being counted.
Mhm.
And since there is concern about, I recently heard from Madeira Beach, for example, that they are interested in kind of following Treasure Island and Gulfport and some of the things that they're doing to connect with people who are living homeless or housing unstable. So again, if we have enough volunteers
Mhm.
to deploy to Treasure Island,
Yeah.
Gulfport, Madeira Beach, St. Pete Beach, who's,
Yes.
you know, if you were to believe what they're saying, right, they have 1,000 people. So I just want to make sure that we, right, we are
Mhm. including.
We will
those
be
that are-
very intentional. I'll put it very clear in our deployments and include areas where there have been questions about numbers.
I will add to that, if I understand not being able to fit in another committee meeting, if you have somebody that can though, please send them our way.
Yeah, absolutely.
On top of that, though, if your organization does outreach and has knowledge of areas we should be covering, send that to us as well, because I can share information with Shannon. I'm totally happy to do that. So, feel free to send us, our street outreach team put together this list, and these are places we think we should cover. Please feel free to do that. And also, I know that everybody in here, of course, does share this with your team members, with your volunteers and everything. But more volunteers, more bodies means more of the county can be covered. We are limited only as far as our volunteers limit us. So if every member of everybody's staff just went out and did a 3-hour shift, I think we probably would have the entire county covered. Try and join the subcommittees if you can, try and share information. But at the very, very least, get as many of your team members and your volunteers. And I stand in line at the grocery store and I'm like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? You want to volunteer for PIT? My husband does 3 shifts in the day when there are 4 shifts. Get everybody involved. It's only a good thing.
Is it January 25th?
January 25th. Thank you very much.
We might want to reach out to like FAST, who has congregations throughout the county.
That
And
actually
ask
would be
them
really smart.
to join in with that.
Kathleen. I spoke with Commissioner Robinson as far as our youth advisory board, and they're interested in, our youth advisory board is interested in partaking in this, especially with the youth action board, to help go out and speak with the younger homeless.
Oh, nice.
So I didn't know exactly who he should contact or how we should contact for somebody to come into one of their meetings and explain.
I think
what we
somebody
do
got
and what
from the-
PIT is.
Yep.
And I know there's an age limit though on PIT, isn't there? Like,
To volunteer on the day, it's 18,
Okay.
but there are things that folks younger could do beforehand to help plan, to help promote.
just being a part of it. I mean,
Yeah.
they are interested in it. I'm not sure how many we have this year, because it just reconvened with the new school year. So, so Victoria, would they contact you or?
They can, Shannon is really the person to contact.
Okay.
If you'd like, I can, send Shannon a note to reach out to you.
Okay, perfect. Because I,
Thank you, that's
yeah,
wonderful.
Jamie was like all over it, of
Oh,
course,
good.
when I talked to him about it, so.
Good.
So Victoria, real quick, would it be advantageous to reach out to the schools because all the seniors are required service hours?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is that part of like the?
And that's where.
Bright
Right
future,
future,
bright
yes.
future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, a shift, there is a 4 to 7 shift. So there is there is an after school shift.
But I bet you could get to Kevin Hendrick and
Yes.
sort of suggest that down, right? I mean, to the schools, because I had the principal of my daughter's school ask me about, she apparently knows who I am, because what did you guys say when I came in? I'm like infamous or some crap like that.
Incomparable.
And she said, hey, you run that organization. I'm like, yeah, she goes, would you consider us doing a service project with you for the
Well,
school? And I'm like, no.
Right.
But I think that would be a really interesting kind of project to, with a collaboration with this, with the schools to do and that would you get more than enough volunteers.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, in light of us not having a member from the school board that's supposed to be here, and I did send letters, I'll reach out to Kevin Hendricks and, I'll reach out to him next week. Today's crap. I'll reach out to him and ask for a sit down meeting, him and I. Yeah, Monica and I, sure. We need to get that rolling for a variety of reasons, let alone that we have over 3,000 children, right?
Yes.
That face Boston. Mhm.
We have a member from the school board, just.
We have a
like here.
designated seat. We don't have a person that's.
They don't have anyone in it.
No, for months.
It used to be Dr. Nicole Carr,
Right.
but her term on the school board ended.
Yeah. Okay, I'll follow up with that. Anything else on committee reports? Okay. Is he a doctor? I don't know. It doesn't. Okay, all right, COC advocacy, here we go. So we've got a whopping, we've got a little over 15 minutes or so, this is a huge topic. But in light of our most recent advocacy efforts with PSTA, I think we need to think about what advocacy looks like, and can look like, and what do we need to consider as we have this advocacy committee that we've talked about forming. So I understand, I'm, again, I haven't been at this as long as most of you, so feel free to jump in at any moment. But I understand the delicate balance between advocating to funders, to municipalities, to governments, when you're a provider and you've also are filling out grants, right? And then we have elected officials that sit on this that are also sensitive to things. And we have to be realistic about the climate we're in this county and in this state. But I think, and please jump in, but I think as the COC contracts with the HLA, who are the experts on homelessness in our community, in our county, prevention, diversion, services, all that we are the oversight, and that they can be a strong voice and they can go out and put their neck on the line a little bit more. And the COC can be, that we can at least have a little cover, whether we choose to stand up and speak or not. I stood up and spoke at the PSTA Sunrunner business, and just said, we need to be at the table as you're discussing these big things. You can't just ram through without having Monica or us or whoever invited at the table. The people with lived experience I mentioned too. We have this committee. People are lending their voice to our decisions and our knowledge. But we can be in a supportive position as a COC. What are your thoughts about that? And then, the way it worked for Monica's, which I thought was a phenomenal statement before the PSTA board, was that she crafted it and there was some feedback with Duggan and me, and April and Sean, the executive committee, about, tweaking it, and then it went forward. And you spoke only on behalf of the HLA.
Correct.
And I think that worked well. Anybody have any thoughts about, but anyway, so that was the most recent thing. But I understand there's also been some criticism that as things happen throughout the county, like where's the HLA, where's the COC, why aren't they making a statement, why aren't they at these meetings saying things? And if maybe what we could have is an advocacy discussion about what the advocacy committee would look like or how it might function, and just people who are interested in maybe serving on it or lending their voice in some way. What do we envision that being? So that's.
And then we've set up an informational meeting on October. Let me pull it up.
If people are interested, think that's a good idea to have like this, just initial discussion, because it's really, maybe we don't want to lend board meeting time to that whole thing. Maybe it's just people who are really interested in what that look like.
So I'm gonna say a couple things about this, because we met, I want to say it was more than a year ago with Deborah Fix Sanders, myself, and a couple other people talking about setting this committee up. In theory, being able to get in front of city councils or county commissions to argue in a broad way for policy changes, stuff like that, all sounds good. I think that it becomes trickier when you get to the realization that a lot of this board are made up of people who are decision makers for individual agencies.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had a discussion, and I'm not gonna name names, but we talked about the fact that the meeting that they had at PSTA in some ways, and kind of felt like, could it be a trap a little bit?
Yeah.
Now, and it's, and I don't think that was any part of the intention, but when you start getting into the politics of things where, you know, what was driving, some of the discussion and the discussion around Sunrunner and adding those fees, and what the sheriff's office reaction was, that suddenly you're like, well, I don't want to get into a situation, you know, where I'm advocating for something and suddenly, you know, perks, you know, I'm on the wrong side of a list. And this goes back to the discussion we had, might have been the last version of this meeting, where Lariana and I were talking about, you know, it's not that we don't want to be part of certain types of committees, it's that as agencies, we have funding that isn't related to homelessness even, that we're putting at risk, because of our positions and maybe some state level concerns. In fact, we're having a lunch next week to talk about some of this stuff with some nonprofit CEOs through NLC. I just think that this, because I'm clearly can't keep my mouth shut too well. And, you know, and there's this fine line between advocacy because it's right, but we also have to be pragmatic when it comes to, you know, my responsibility to my community is one thing, my responsibility as the CEO of PERC is different. And it becomes much more complicated in a political environment on how do we do this in a way that doesn't have unintentional consequences for us as individuals who make up this board, or the providers council, or the funders council. And it's and I hate that that's where we are, but it'd be, you know, disingenuous to say that that's not where we are too. You know, can we put together one pagers on issues? Can we, you know, be very benign? And that's hard. Listen, you know, I on occasion have an opinion, and I'm pretty shy about sharing it, but when I do, sometimes my mouth gets me into trouble. You know, it's not ever wrong necessarily. I mean, you know, we're arguing about things that are important, but it's you know, it does put you in, geez, how do we do this in a way that's gonna not have impacts 5 other ways that have nothing to do with this particular issue?
Yeah. Well, and I think advocacy, it's an interesting thing. There's been two issues of late, right? One was about the point in time data. And all of a sudden there is this communication happening publicly, right? That the point in time data was incorrect, that
because a reporter tipped me off.
correct, there was, and it got pretty, and then the Sunrunner issue. The problem with white papers and those kinds of things is that those types of issues require timely response, right? They require this very nimble, which I think goes back to what you were saying a second ago, Kathleen, about, you know, Monica's responsibility and or opportunity to perhaps get out in front of something quickly. As opposed to, it's got to go through committee, it's got to go through the board, we got to create a white paper. I mean, we couldn't get that done in time if we dropped everything. There's just too much to that. And, you know, on the Sunrunner issue, you know, it is a very layered and very complicated issue. And quite frankly, I still to this day don't think the issue has been properly defined. And if I had to guess, I would say it's not being properly defined because of this dynamic that Michael is talking about, which is everybody's afraid to call it what it is. And we're not going to call it what it is because we're going to get on the wrong side of the sheriff, and we're going to get on the wrong side of somebody. And our funding will be compromised, and we will be, you know, put on the wrong list, and this and that and the other thing. So we are calling what that issue is. And And so I do think that this is a topic that has to be, again, it's probably not, can't be done here in
No,
terms of the, right, we've given ourselves 90 minutes to do this meeting, which seems absurd, but in any case, I think that it's gonna have to then therefore go to the advocacy committee or something
Yes.
to have a lengthy conversation.
Mhm.
But I will say that if we want our lead agency, in this case, the HLA, to represent the issues, whether they're representing the COC or not, but represent the issues when it needs timely response.
Yep.
You know, sometimes I think we are asking Monica to be way too vanilla. Thank you. And I hope everybody knows what I mean by being vanilla, like, we're just gonna walk this real line, right? She's gonna be very vanilla about our response. When, quite frankly, there should be outrage.
I'm very much more of a Rocky Road kind of person, so.
But,
Yeah.
but to April's point, if not Monica, who can be outraged too,
That's what I'm
because
saying.
this is
Yeah.
literally her
Yes.
job.
It's a job.
I know it, I know.
I
Please
mean,
let me do my job.
do you feel like
Please.
we're reining you in as a
I-
board?
I think that there are definitely there have been opportunities that have been missed, there have been advocacy issues that have been missed. There have been opportunities for us to advocate on the state level where I have been told no. You are to only, you should only represent local issues.
I never said.
You didn't say that, no, you didn't, Kathleen, or Councilmember Beckman hasn't said that, it was Sean King who said in an email, we should only be focusing on local issues.
See, and that's
And,
is where this becomes
know,
way too complicated,
this
because there's a different agenda that
For the
Sean,
HLA.
no, that Sean has as in his role at Habitat, that needs to be separate from his role here, and I think, and that's not a criticism of Sean, we're
No.
all in that situation.
But this is my role, and yes, I have been hindered in my ability to do some things, and I did this before, I mean, like, I mean, many people, I don't know if I worked in the political arena for many, many years. Had my own consulting firm, so I do know how to do this. But if, with the layer of, let me do this, right, like, I think the way we handled the Sunrunner thing was fine, but again, it was too vanilla. Because I am the one that can speak on this, where necessarily you guys can't because of these delicate issues.
And even then, again, I just think.
I had to toe that
You
line.
did,
I,
and we had to, and we were, again, even your voice, right, we're just so vanilla. I have to tell you, Pastor Andy,
Yes.
is the only one who spoke truth to power, was Pastor Andy. And what he said at that meeting, you know, it seems like a nothing meeting regardless, but he is the only one who spoke truth to power and actually spoke that right to the actual issues. And it's my understanding, right, that all that information will be sent out. We can get it out to everybody if you weren't online or if you weren't in the room. But Pastor Andy spoke truth to power. And my thing is that thank goodness he was there, and thank goodness he was prepared, he was articulate, he was those kinds of things. But in the end, it feels like we have to be able to, and really what we're talking about is speaking truth to power.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you make a good point in that the faith community doesn't have as much on the line. And they can be voices and partners as well. You know, again, we have this vast organization that's countywide. Housing and homelessness are, you know, part of their ongoing priorities. But there are community partners that don't have things at risk, that they can be part of this advocacy group, whatever it might be, or look like. You know, ideally, I would again think, and again, this is after we form this meeting or this little committee, but if we give more free reign to Monica and her team, and then she should have a list of people on speed dial that she can have show up and speak. They've got the white paper, they might have lived experience, they're faith-based people who have people knocking on their doors and all that other stuff. They're on the ground, on the front lines, they can speak as well. not saying I'm not, we're not, but it, I think that's where we need to put the emphasis of the advisory committee. But if you're interested in weighing in on this and helping to shape it, to have a more robust, hour and a half conversation about what advocacy might look like, who might be involved, and maybe we want to invite people to that meeting. What date did we?
It is
tentatively set?
October 25th from 2 to 3:30, and the invite will be going out today.
Well, I just think that one of the benefits of being an advocate versus being somebody who has to make the decision is that you can advocate for your one side and do it in a way that's, making people listen, because the more impacts that you give to that advocacy, it's going to, if you're, kind of vanilla, if we use that term, on it, that is as much power as you give it. But if you give some things that make people uncomfortable,
Yes,
that's your job as an advocate, is that you are one-sided on
Yes.
that, rather than being in a decision position where you have to weigh both sides. So I think that that's completely appropriate.
I just think the only concern I have is making sure that the separation is clear between the COC and the Homeless Leadership Alliance. And I don't know that that's clear.
Well, I don't think it is clear, and again, I think the separation is needed when there is perhaps either a difference of opinion, or B, we haven't had an opportunity to vet it through the COC. I think it's fair that we're trying to create, that we're making sure that there's some separation. But sometimes there doesn't need to be a separation in terms of, Monica's voice or the staff of the HLA's voice is supposed to be echoing our voice, right? And in some ways, right, they can't yet because it hasn't been vetted here. It is a dynamic that is, which is what I mean by when these issues come up that are very time sensitive, we don't have time to get it through anything. We miss an opportunity when we take this very vanilla approach and we allow people to reframe an issue for the sake of politics, I'll just call it, as opposed to really talking about the issue at hand, right? So this issue with Sunrunner is not about a fair.
no,
Just to be clear, it is not about a fair, okay? And so we're gonna spend all this time and we're gonna gather all the people. We've already discussed here, right, that we don't have enough time for any more meetings. And so we're gonna gather all the people and now we're gonna talk about something that we're not even talking about. Like, what are we talking about here, right? What we're talking about is people sleeping on the beach who are presenting as either looking like they're homeless and or they are housing unstable or have no place to be during the day because their shelter, they have to leave or whatever it is, right? Sleeping on the beach, using the public facilities of showers and bathrooms and public beach access. That's what we're talking about. And we don't want those people.
we don't want to see it.
No, we do not want them. We don't want to see them, and we don't want those people there. So we didn't talk about that issue. I hadn't heard that issue talked about anywhere. And yet, what we're doing is spending all kinds of time talking about a fair, which is not the issue. And so it's not my issue. And it shouldn't be the issue of those of us who are committed to solving homelessness. So I'm just saying, we've got to have some conversation that's real and hard and uncomfortable and all those kinds of things about how we stand up for the people that we care about and that we're committed to. Because that's when it's important, in my opinion. It's not when everything's going easy, right? But it's when it's hard. Who's standing up? Because I feel like we've got to be at least among them who's standing up.
Well, so we have the meeting date set. I hope those of you that care and have that time available will show up. I'll be there. And I'd like to invite people, like people from FAST.
Yeah.
Andy, would be good.
You should be the chair, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, really, people, right.
You should be.
So anyway, invite people that you think would be good. for that, to lend their voice to what that might look like. This is tedious and who really cares about it, but we've talked about a separate logo for COC versus a logo
We
for
have one
HOA.
ready to go.
We,
did spoke.
you know, if you talk about a separation of, I mean, maybe we really need to start pushing that real distinction about what the COC is and what the HLA is, and something as simple as a logo, you know, might help, and separate web page when you Google it up, and they're both on the same dang page.
I was gonna say, branding is really important because it sticks in people's minds, you know, when they see that image and they lump everything together.
Yep.
And I say this as the housing authority, we changed our logo last year because the old logo had things associated with it, and we wanted to show a brand new face, brand new leadership, like just, and so we were very intentional of making sure that that was like a big deal, because we were moving forward, not looking backward. And I think that that has helped in the way that we are receiving the community now. But, and I believe to the point made earlier about the distinction, about the separation, not to say that there aren't things that are aligned in terms of mission statements and so forth, but if there's going to be a face that has more of a, I guess, more distinction, and I don't want to use the word assertive, less vanilla approach, then let that be the one that's shining forth, and we're perhaps providing, or the advisory committee is providing.
Oversight. It's
Yeah,
just-
oversight, priorities,
Yeah.
some guidance, but, you know, when the teeth need to come out, then the
Yes,
HOA has the teeth
Right.
and gnawing away at whatever that issue is while
Yes.
we are, so that's, but the branding, sorry
Yeah.
for making that point, I
Yeah.
thought that was really important.
Thank you. So maybe we can set a goal to have all that set.
We
like,
have it
within
already.
2 months, within 3 months, we've got the logo and a different web page.
I can't promise a different web page,
Okay.
but we can have some, like, we'll start some
Okay.
something, yeah, we'll talk for people.
All right, a real clear distinction. Yeah, go ahead.
So the other thing that seems like it would be helpful is if the advocacy committee has some kind of a written document that describes clearly what its role is and is not, and who its agents are and are not, and what actions are pre-approved.
Yep,
And
all
that
that.
document that comes through here, et cetera.
Yep.
I just want to say briefly, just as a PSA rep, thank you to everyone who played a role, who came out to the meeting, who came and spoke and raised a voice. I intentionally put the first question out there in the invite, which is received some criticism, which is fine. And that was intended to be the real question.
What was the question?
The question was, what are better alternatives for people who are homeless, rather than sleeping and showering on the beach? So, and I'm fine taking criticism because I was trying to get that out. And it is what it is, but that's, thank you all for participating, I appreciate it.
Anybody else that I can't see them? Okay, fantastic. So please,
Maybe adjacent to the discussion. real quick.
yeah,
My name is Eddie Kester. I'm with PSBA as well. We came up with Ross as my partner in our planning department. Jacob and I are representing our PSTA Leadership 2023 class. And one of the goals of our this year is to host a resource summit for the community. We've partnered up with the Center for Health Equity in St. Petersburg. And this event it resembles and looks very close to a resource fair. There will be providers in the community who will come out, set up tables, just like a resource fair. But a big portion of our event on October 3rd is a panel discussion and breakout groups for COC members, providers in the community, at an event where members of our community who are experiencing homelessness will also be there to advocate for themselves, to connect. So this is a connection day. This is a discussion day. This is an opportunity for folks from top to bottom, left to right, to have these kinds of discussions and talk about what are the challenges in the community, what are the opportunities in the community. And we just wanted to come out and kind of raise that awareness that we're having this event And we would absolutely love to see this. I love the spike in passion and energy in the room right now. And would love to see this kind of stuff continue and, you know, out loud.
I think it's a great summary, Eddie. I think I'll just say, if you want to break flavors of ice cream other than vanilla, I couldn't blame you.
Yeah. Good.
Right, there's gonna be breakout sessions and, there's gonna be, you know, we're trying to gather, some giveaways that would be actually meaningful to people. You know, with lived experience, that they are able to be there. And there'll be breakout discussions and those kinds of things. I think it'll be a lovely event if we can, you know, kind of get people there. It is gonna be at the Center for Health Equity, so it'll be in St. Petersburg, but it is open to the entire county. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to get people from North and Mid County to be there.
I'll spread the word. I'll have Jennifer and Matt can help spread the word. So you guys, this is the flyer. They have it in the back in that box, if you haven't gotten it already. Can you send it to us digitally?
Yeah, we actually just got a registration link that the Center for Health Equity made, so we can spread that out. And I think there are actually a few priors here at the table that could be joining us. If anyone else is interested in tabling in the event, please don't hesitate to reach out. But happy to share all the information.
Okay.
And I can send the link out to everybody, or I can send the flyer out to everybody. In email as well.
Fantastic.
So just real quick on that, as somebody that this isn't my normal wheelhouse, like who are you, besides the usual suspects, who are you looking for to go there, I guess?
Oh, see, so to give you a sample of kind of who we have so far, so far we've engaged, Safety Housing Authority, the HEAT program with Pinellas County Schools, Greenhouse. I think we're just trying to get the full, spectrum of, you know, community, well, trying again, I don't know, probably continuum of care, local, you know, nonprofits, local government. Okay. Let me interrupt today. So we're just trying to get a nice representation from people, from local organizations. I think we have like a few topical areas where we have representative between, you know, housing, transportation, mental health, food insecurity, to try to get a nice representative of all the variety of services that are available.
But the attendees are people who are homeless and or living, housing unstable, maybe living in hotel, maybe living in their car, maybe living on the streets, maybe living in shelter.
Well,
But
maybe Alice, I mean, people working poor who are using the
housing
bus
unstable,
and need that,
right,
yeah.
and who need, maybe, aren't aware of the resources that are available to them. It would be an opportunity to connect them to resources, help them know the resources that are available to them, and maybe, you know, get a lunch in their belly while they're there, and, you know, some things that might be meaningful to them, like a backpack or, you know, snacks or, you know, whatever.
So it might be important, like, to get out to the hotels and have
Yes.
workers and things like that.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say something and you know, criticize me if you want. Our 25th annual event, our Showcase of Services, is now moved from October 16th to October 12th, because we usually bring about 70 providers and employers. We moved it to the 12th because the Urban League and the Foundation for a Healthy St. Pete kind of put together a sort of competing event on the 12th. So instead of having two separate events, we decided to, you know, collaborate. So it's going to be at the Palladium. And so now we've got to do a better job, because you're going to be targeting the same people and providers that have been targeted for multiple events in the same month. And not that, you know, you could say, well, we work with returning citizens. That's true, but we're really targeting these same populations with these same providers. We need to do a better job of coordinating some of those kinds of, I mean, the Urban League has gotten to a point of doing more or less monthly events, you know, for job fairs. I just think as a group, we've got to coordinate better, so that we're not having 3 different events in the same month that are kind of targeting the same people with the same providers, all having tables at these same events. You know, I think we need to do a better job of that.
Is the HLA calendar a place where we can post things? Because we need a way to know about what's going on, so we don't conflict.
Absolutely.
Who would be the person that we send?
Victoria.
There is actually already a link, by the way, that's existed for about year or so, for COC member organizations to submit events, program updates, resources you would like us to share, whether you would like us to post it on newsletters, social media, share with the providers via email. I can make sure that I send that out as well. But there is a link for that. On that note, I'll go ahead and plug, there is also a link to request volunteer assistance on the same note.
Great.
But yeah, we would love to share events.
Fantastic. All right, we're gonna stay over, but we'll be okay. All good. So please, join me, Monica, others, on the advocacy meeting, yeah, and you'll send out October 20-something.
25th at 2:00.
Okay. Right. Okay, Doug. HUD's, yeah, no vote. An update?
Sure, and do we have the actual ranking? I mean, I think we all have the overview that's on the,
That's what the QR code is, so if you wanna
oh, perfect,
use it outside the rankings.
all right. We'll just make sure that they're the same ones that I have up on my spreadsheet right now. So, this year's rank and review process was, probably one of the most challenging that I've experienced in the years that I've done this. And so, we went through the process. We had, renewal applications from organizations that are already funded through this process. We had new applications this year, from a variety of organizations. The committee met, the committee scored the applications that it met to have a discussion. And came up with its initial ranking of the projects. After that was that, which included the funding for most of the renewals, reductions for 2 of them, one of them being Bowley's Shelter Plus Care 62 program and CASA's rapid rehousing, one of their rapid rehousing programs, reductions to both of those. And at the same time, increases or new projects funded that have system-wide benefits, including additional dollars for HMIS and coordinated entry. That was a difficult process to go through and put that together. After that was done, it was found that we had additional dollars that could be allocated. And so the rank and review committee met again to talk about how to use those dollars that were the additional revenue that was found. And ultimately what was decided with that is to go ahead and fund a new proposal that was for rapid rehousing, but not domestic violence rapid rehousing. It was a highly ranked project from St. Vincent de Paul. And so the committee allocated $380,000 to that particular project. The other thing that we discussed was how we would sort of program in domestic violence bonus projects this year. The challenge with DV bonus projects, depending on where you put them in the ranking, if they are selected as bonus projects, it's great. It does not, they sort of get removed from the funding pool and it doesn't affect any of the other projects as listed. If they're not selected as a bonus project, it's possible for us to lose funding for lower ranked projects in favor of that particular project. We have had some luck before in getting DV bonus projects funded as bonus projects, and it hasn't affected the other projects. But then last year, one of our DV bonus projects was not selected as a bonus project, and we lost we had a reduction that cut funding for one of our other rapid rehousing programs. It was the St. Vincent de Paul program last year that got axed. And so this year we decided to put the DV bonus projects at the bottom of the ranking, and if they get funded, then it's great. It's additional funding for the continuum. If they don't get funded, then it doesn't affect the other projects in the ranking. We had some good advice this year too from the consultant that HLA had, that it really, I don't think it mattered. There was some belief that if you put your DD bonus projects up higher in the ranking, that they're more likely to get funded. And really, that's not the case. It matters how the entire continuum scores, and if we score high enough as a continuum, they can get funded as bonus projects, regardless of where they are in our ranking. So that was helpful to hear this year. And so we met also after this was all done with the executive committee of the COC board, which ultimately had a few questions and then ultimately approved the ranking that was done by the committee. I do have one piece of concern out of this that I wanted to raise. We did, in this, we had reduced funding in the original round for CASA for one of their DV rapid rehousing programs. And then neither one of the projects that was submitted for the DV bonus projects, the projects together did not maximize the total amount of funding we could have asked for. And so we went back to CASA to ask them that, under the philosophy that we believe organizations ask for what they can handle. And so if they knew what the maximum was that they could have requested, they did not max out their request. So we didn't want to necessarily force upon an organization more than what it has the capacity to handle. But we went back to CASA to ask, since there is a reduction of a similar type program, could you and would you increase your request for the bonus project and have the capacity to do that? And they said yes. But then as we have put it in the ranking, CASA's bonus project is ranked one below the Hope Village's bonus project. They're scored similar, but now it is possible, since we went back to ask them, which would be a sort of partial restoration of what had to be removed. If one of them gets funded but not the other, it's not going to be CASA who we set it up to go back and restore their funding the way that we have put it into the ranking, and that was raised as sort of an issue from CASA to I think to Monica, and so just want to talk to the board about how we have ordered them in here. I will say we ordered the two bonus projects based on how they scored, but we have had a tremendous amount of conversation about the scoring tool, what we count as, what we value in that scoring tool. And I'll give you an example, like Brookwood, we look at program outcomes. And one of the programmatic outcomes we look for performance on is increasing income. And increasing either earned income or increasing income from other benefits that someone might get while they're in a program. That is not an appropriate measure for Brookwood. That is not what their program concentrates on, but it's a measure that we have. It's a measure that HUD wants us to be looking at. It just is not appropriate. So over the last few years, as we've looked at Brookwood's score, we have allowed them to continue to be funded on the basis of the uniqueness of the program and the population it serves, in a misfit with some of the measures that we're looking at, because that's not what we're funding them for. And so, we have some challenges with the scoring, with what we're looking at. The committee has discussed that. The committee has gotten feedback. Our executive committee got some feedback about that as well. And I think some of the new things coming from data and system performance and some of the measures are going to help us work on some of that stuff. So I'd say that to say, like, when we scored this, CASA ranked lower than the other project because one of the measures we look at some of the measures of their performance of other like programs. And then we have a new program in there who we don't have those measures, and so they automatically sort of earn points, even though it's untested. So those two, looking at it sort of rationally now, are flip-flop probably from what they should be. They're both ranked at the bottom of the list. But the project that we asked to, increase their requested allocation to make up for something else that was cut, is ranked now below a new project that is in the list. So I wanted to raise that for the board because that issue was raised, and see if there's anything that the board wanted to discuss about that or do related to that.
Yes. Yes, we do, or at least I do. So my question would be, if we, with that understanding, if we simply flipped them, right? So that we could restore those dollars in the event that we're funded. What is the risk to Hope Villages? Is the risk that we would get enough to only fund CASA and then therefore they wouldn't be funded at all? Is that the risk?
Collectively, the dollar amounts requested now for both projects are the maximum that the continuum can ask for.
Yeah.
And so if we score high enough, then both projects could potentially be funded as bonus projects. Depending on how much HUD has available, as they're awarding bonus projects to other continuums that rank above us. And so if we can only get partial funding for bonus projects instead of the maximum that we've asked for, it's going to affect the second ranked project potentially more than the first ranked project. And so depending on how much money we get. So the risk is that in the order that it is now, that if only one of them gets funded, there's partial funding available, it would have a benefit to Hope Villages first, the way it's ranked now, and then any other benefit keeps working its way down to CASA, which has the larger request. And so flip-flop, it would be the same. If we got partial bonus funding, it would benefit CASA first until that project is fully funded, and then any remaining would go to Hope Villages. So the impact would be the same, either way you order it. But the primary issue, I think, is that from the committee's perspective, we did go back and ask Monica on our behalf, asked CASA, would you maximize your request because we are taking money in another part of here, and you have the infrastructure and could do that. It just is additional funding, and they said, yes, they could absorb that and they could do it, but now we put that project more, I'd say more at risk, the one that we went back to and asked, could you maximize your request?
What is the difference in score?
5 percentage points, so Hope Villages sat at a 90 and CASA sat at an 85.
And the 5 points, if I'm understanding what you said correctly, the 5 points was lost by CASA.
Look at what we might have done scoring. Carly may know what affected them the most. In the scoring.
They're both bonus projects?
They're both bonus projects.
They're both bonus projects,
Mhm.
absolutely.
One's DV and one's.
They're
They're both
DD.
DD bonus,
DD.
both DD bonus, correct.
And I wanted to add that when they do applications for HUD, they both have their own applications, right? They're submitting their own projects and applications. Like Duggan said, it doesn't matter where they are on the ranking because it's a different pot of money.
Sure.
In the COC application itself, they have another individual application where they're answering questions like HUD is saying how long it's gonna take you to get operationalized and all these things. Those are the pieces that do not affect the score of the COC application, but those are the pieces HUD is really looking at. It's a lot more on individualized, the realities of can this project be done and like, and I think CASA has so much history of doing this, but I'm sure that their application is really good. And I'm honestly not sure if right now, right here, we can change these, and I don't wanna do anything without asking the consultant, honestly, and that's just my opinion, maybe Monica thinks differently, but I'm worried if we.
What did we put in, what was our official, because I just don't have it up right now, what was our official appeal date and post date? If you might mind showing that, please.
Yeah.
And did CASA submit an official appeal, Carly?
I don't know necessarily if I would say it was an official appeal, but they had reached out and had concerns that they were for lower than the Haven because of discussions that were had during the committee meeting, so they would have been, Tuesday the 5th. But I just wanna give like background that when HUD looks at the DD bonus projects, they're also looking at CASA's individual applications. They've been funded numerous times by the way that they respond. And the point of the consultant is that the higher we score on the COC application, the more likely we are to get bonus projects. So this is our best year yet. Our application is so much better than it's ever been. But we lose points on system performance. We can't fix that. We do that every single year. That's just what a HUD rule, but I mean, we have a really good chance this year of these projects being funded. Both of them, in my opinion.
And if that were to occur, best case scenario, if that were to occur, we then don't have an issue? Or we do?
Get funded if.
No, if we do get score high enough as the COC full application, they would both get funded.
And so the question that we asked them, if we could restore them and those kinds of things, would be a non-issue. Because we're fully funded, they're getting all the money they need. Is that true or not true? Because I thought I was understanding you to say that the only way that happens is if they're flipped.
No, it's if we get partial funding.
Okay.
The risk
The
is there
only
if we're
issue is-
issued, not given full funding of our total
Gotcha.
allowable for DD bonus projects. And it would happen to both of them, no matter what order it was.
Right, it would.
And so it was, the issue where CASA did lose points is in, and this is the challenge when you have an existing provider. Is in sort of like drawdowns, related to like funds recaptured by HUD within the last 3 years. So it penalizes the provider that has that versus one that has nothing in the system. We give them full points. And similar to, not so much here, but outcome measures, you know, the new provider with a new application, we don't have history there. And so we go ahead and give full points so as to not penalize the project, but if you got existing stuff in the system, then, and you have outcome, you know, challenges like Brookwood, which is rational why it doesn't, you know, why they would have fun or performance issues on the wrong measures, but we have to make some judgment calls about stuff like that. So.
Well, I would just suggest that if there is a conversation about flipping to ranked projects, this could potentially cause question of one of the Hope villages coming back to us and asking, you know, why we are now putting their project below after we've already published on the website. And I would just.
Did we get an appeal by the appeal date?
We did not get an official appeal.
No,
No.
the appeal, the concern came through to HLA, appeals were due for the COC no vote, you know, which was not received in that way, as requested for the appeals process.
So I would not recommend that we make any changes to what's been done. However, I do think that we need to take this back for rank and review, which is that it does seem not equitable that a project that doesn't have, that's a new project and therefore doesn't have history,
Yeah.
is getting full points for something that a project with history is being measured on its merit. Seems like there's an error in the process as opposed to that we can't necessarily fix here. So I would say that the other thing that I would say is that, and right this minute I'm speaking as the CEO of Directions for Living, is, you know, Directions for Living also submitted a project. We were ranked the exact same as St. Vincent de Paul, and so we both had a score of I think 87, and St. Vincent de Paul was selected when you guys came back together. The thing that I would ask that we are being sensitive to is, what are the qualifications for the deciding factor, so to speak?
The deciding factor in that, which was at the public meeting, was the difference in number of people to be served under those projects that rank the same.
Correct, and you know, I wasn't there for a reason, and I didn't attend executive committee because of the same reason. And so just so everybody here knows, right, that I didn't weigh in on any of this. I will just say though that, you know, the number of people served and the quality of services in terms of what people are getting, sometimes you're gonna serve fewer people because of the service being provided. And so I just want to continue to advocate for, trauma-informed care, and comprehensive trauma-informed care sometimes means you are serving fewer people more robustly. And so to just look at numbers, sometimes you're shooting yourself in the foot. But in any case, I think there's a couple of those things that we need to take back and look at with intention, as opposed to we're just trying to make a decision pretty quickly, because that's how it felt, is that we're just trying to make a decision pretty quickly, as opposed to really looking at the long-term impact of what the decision is.
We also need to look at, if we're gonna look at drawdowns and other things, we need to look at local funding too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right, we're close to on time. I just have one little question, I mean, as we finish up here, is, for, you know, CASA and DB getting points taken away because they don't have income, increasing income, you know, measurements or whatever. It's not enough to be linked with another organization that does that. I mean, certainly it's not CASA's job to do job training or helping them with job searches or things like that, but if they partner and have that resource, is that not enough? They have to supply it on site? Is that-
No, they don't have to supply it on site, it's just the measure of whether or not it happens. And so if someone else does it, or they partner with someone to do it,
And then
and
they have to
it
show
and it
that
has the
these-
positive
these
impact.
People went
And they
here
can-
and they improved their income?
If they can report improved income
Yeah.
according to the
Yeah.
requirements, yes.
Okay,
It's just another metric they have to track.
yeah,
for
yes,
these dollars.
yeah.
There's a number of projects like that. I mean, I serve a population predominantly that's retirement age, but I still have
Right,
employment
Yeah.
Right.
Option.
outcome
Yeah.
expectations of
Correct.
people that aren't even in the workforce, you know,
Right.
or they're severely disabled and,
Yeah,
but yet 40% of them are supposed to increase their employment.
that's not,
You know,
that's not right.
And to Kevin's point, we do track it, however, our population is very unique, right? And so there's a lot of factors, I mean, we all serve unique populations, right? But specifically for domestic violence, I mean, there's things that take top priority versus increasing income, right? So like safety, having, you know, rebuilding your whole life, having to relocate. So for some people, just having that income is good enough. They're not really looking to increase it maybe at this time because they're really just trying to stabilize
Yeah,
and, you know,
keep their job.
right, and kind of get settled from the crisis moment. So I think it's something to consider as well.
All right. Okay. Monica. Stepped out, but I have, so. This membership meeting on the 28th, is set. I have, I think, I don't know if you all were here when I mentioned the beginning, but the city of Clearwater, we hold our council meetings in the main library. We have a council chamber in there and. Or the cafeteria. Well, the sprinkler system broke, exploded on the third floor and dripped all the way down through 2 floors in the library. It's closed for at least a month and we had to cancel our budget meeting, which was last Wednesday, and things had to be rescheduled. So I have a meeting on the 28th now, that evening. I can't be at this continuum of care membership meeting, and Monica had told me that the vice chair, Deborah Sanders, can't either. So I don't, just talking about our meeting on the 28th, and some key people are gonna be not here. I don't know, if, you know, what our options might be. I mean, I don't have the charter in front of me to look at that as far as requirements of that. I mean, so if I'm not able to be here because of our changed council, and if Deborah. has
I think we
indicated-
will probably need to move it if so many people can attend, because I would really like us to have a robust, active,
Yeah,
act meeting.
Is there a reason we're doing membership meetings in the evenings now?
thank you, Donovan.
I can speak to historically. We started doing that, in 2022, I think, late 2020 or early 2022, because that was when community members can participate. You know, providers and everything, obviously, it's easiest for us during the work day, but people outside of our organizations who want to participate can't. Then, so the decision was made to do 5:30 to 7:30 on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. If the board wants to look at changing that, I have no qualms. That's just historically what we did and why.
I won't be able to attend those usually.
In the
those
evening?
meetings In the
Okay.
evening, I've worked a second job.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think that's a good question. I mean, I think they were better attended in the afternoon, but, you know, it takes time to get the word out and get people to come in the evenings. I don't know, any other input on that as board members? Really like people to be there for the meetings?
I can say that, just speaking to some of the folks that we do want to attend, at the Lived Experience Advisory Committee meeting, at that first meeting we did in June, Carly and I pulled the room. We asked everybody, what time would you like to meet? Weekends, weekdays, during the workday, after the workday, and like 80 to 90% of the folks in the room, and we had 45 people there or something like that, said that they wanted Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday at 5:30 p.m. And that was the Lived Experience Advisory Committee for their meetings. That is not a membership meeting, but it is part of the constituency, so I just wanted to throw that out there for y'all.
Well, there is a requirement, that's the thing that we have to keep in mind, is that there is a requirement for everybody here, certainly, and for the members of the COC to be in attendance of at least 2 of the 4, is that correct?
Correct.
So 2 of the 4 in order to maintain their membership and maintain their vote. So if they sit on committees and boards and whatnot, in order to vote, they have to be able to attend at least 2. And the expectation really is that you're there for all 4. So I do think that I don't know.
We have Victoria's worked on a master, we can actually send that out to everybody, so everybody can see where
Please do that. 'cause
they're,
you told me.
Victoria, would you mind sending that out to see where everybody is?
The attendance
Yeah.
list and people that, yeah.
And we are looking at scheduling another membership meeting on November 1st. I talked to Michelle and Michael at PERC about getting that scheduled for membership and board elections and everything like that, but it's not official yet.
And does Zoom attendance count?
No, not for voting quorum.
In the charter, there is nothing that specifically states it cannot.
Okay. All right, do we want to do a doodle poll for that November 1st membership meeting?
A doodle poll for what?
For what, we were already gonna set that one up.
We've already got it, all right, so we don't anticipate any conflicts.
As of now, no, I mean, a lot of the conflicts we had have been things that are unavoidable. Like, we didn't know about meetings
Yeah.
and changes
Right,
and
right,
accidents and such.
okay. Okay. All right, so I have a council meeting November 1st.
Okay, well, it's like I said, it was a tentative date.
Please send out a doodle.
Yeah.
We don't want to get that one in for elections. On that note, everybody will sometime soon be getting COC board election information, because believe it or not, that is coming up in just a couple months.
Right, and that is to be voted on at the November meeting, is that correct?
That is the idea.
Yeah, so again, I just need to make sure everybody here understands the sequence of events here. But if you're not putting the pieces together, it's important, right? Like, you can't, if you haven't attended 2 of these things, right, then you can't, when you get here to this November thing and board seats are being voted on, right, there's an impact to this, so we gotta back this up. If we have people, and if we're canceling September 28th, right, we're gonna get ourselves in trouble here. I'm just trying to, trying to make sure we all understand.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to run the meeting in the 28th? I mean, again, we've got to get quorum.
What,
Well, no, we don't need quorum for the membership meeting, do
We
we?
need form for the membership meeting when we vote.
Oh,
Not for September.
not for September, but for November.
right, but not
November
for
is the
September
meeting,
20th.
correct, November is the meeting where
Yeah.
board seats are voted on. Okay, so, yes, I am, it's on my calendar for the 28th, I am happy to run the membership meeting on the 28th, understanding that both you and Councilwoman Fig Sanders will not be there. I understand that, but I think we should still hold the meeting.
Fantastic, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay.
We will get you all the agenda stuff, packet, and we'll have one.
And if we can allow people to participate and or count their attendance via Zoom for people who are unable to attend in person, maybe we should do that so that
Oh,
people are
sure.
getting their seat counted,
Yes.
so that when we get to November, we're not.
Yeah. And let's send that, we'll send an email, to articulate that, like you need to attend this meeting. Well, good, hopefully you'll have a robust.
I won't be able to attend it virtually either, because,
You're working.
yeah, doing anger management.
Okay.
I'll be on a different Zoom.
I have it's a budget meeting, who knows how long it'll go, it might just be a,
Doubtful.
and if but if it is, I can zoom in, yeah. Yeah. All right, anything else? So, anything you wanna add, Monica?
Yeah, thank you all.
Everybody good? Thank you for sticking it out, I appreciate it. I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thank you for coming.